Working in bases other than base 10 is something that makes a lot of students a little uncomfortable, especially at first. It's not always easy. It takes a little getting used to, and I think there's some value in there in that it gives you a feeling of what it's like to be a student who doesn't really understand how our number system works, so that when you're teaching it, you can relate a little bit, remember what it was like to work in something that you weren't that familiar with, and maybe some of the things that help you learn other bases will help you teach base 10 to your students. We'll start out looking at base 10, and well, of course we use base 10. We have 10 fingers and 10 toes, right? It only makes sense. That must be why it's called base 10. Well, not exactly. You'll remember that we can write a number with a base and an exponent. And in that case, the base is 10 and the exponent is 1. This would be 10 to the first power, and this is 10. But we could also write 10 to the 0 power, and you might remember anything to the 0 power is 1. And we could write 10 to the second power, 10 to the third power. And what these are is, well, 10 to the 0 is 1, 10 to the first power is 10, 10 to the second power is 100, 10 to the third power is 1,000, and what do you know? These are our place values. We've got the ones place, the tens place, the hundreds place, the thousands place, and so on. And that's why our system is called base 10. Another important feature of base 10 is that we have 10 digits that we work with. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those 10 digits are the only ones we have. We just write them in the appropriate place values to give us the number that we're looking for. Now let's look at a base other than base 10. Let's look at base 5. One of the things we can do to figure out what the place values are going to be in base 5 is the same thing we did with our base 10 numbers. We'll have 5 to the 0 power, 5 to the first power, 5 to the second power, 5 to the third power, and so on if we wanted to get bigger. And anything raised to the 0 power is 1. 5 to the first power is 5. 5 to the second power is 25. 5 to the third power is 125, and so on. So in base 5, our place values will be the 1's place, the 5's place, 25's place, 125's place, and so on. It's a little uncomfortable at first. It takes a little getting used to, but I think you can do it with practice. Also in base 5, we're not going to have 10 digits anymore. We're only going to have 5 digits, and those digits are going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the same way that we can't write 10 in a single individual place value in base 10, because we can't put 2 digits in one space, we're not going to have the ability to write 5 in base 5. The only digits we have in base 5 are these right here. Two types of problems that we're going to see in this section will be what comes after and what comes before. And an example that we're going to look at is what comes after 2,4 base 5. Notice I didn't say 24 base 5 because there aren't any, it's not 24. There are no 10s columns. There are no 20s. So it's not 24 base 5, it is 2,4 base 5. And what comes after that? Well, my instinct, what I've known my whole life, is to say that 2,5 base 5 would come next. There's a problem there. There aren't any 5s in base 5. So that cannot come next. Instead, once I get past 4, since I can't make 5, this goes to 0, and this has to get bumped up by 1. So what comes after 2,4 base 5 is 3,0 base 5. If you're thinking, well, that's nuts, how in the world am I going to do this? Keep in mind, if I gave you 4,9 base 10 and said, what comes next? Well, we're not going to put a 10 here and make it 410. That's not going to be correct. Instead, what has to happen is that clicks over to a 0, this goes up by 1, and it would be 50, base 10. 50 is what comes after 49 because I've reached my highest digit in my system, so I go to a 0 next, and one column over has to increase by 1, and that's how we get there. Now let's look at a what comes before question. Let's say we are given 1, 2, 0, base 5, and we're asked what comes before. My instinct is, well, that's 120, so it'd be 119, right? Well, no, remember, there are no 9s in base 5, so this can't be correct. So what has to happen here is, well, the top digit that I have is a 4, so that's what goes in the 1s column, and then instead of 120, I'll be at 114, base 5. I just backed up one number. Here again, let's look at the base 10 similarities. If we had, say, 70 in base 10, and I want the number that comes before, well, I'm at the lowest digit that I have, so then that means I back up to the highest digit that I have, and then the 7 has to get reduced by 1 to be 69, and that works. It's the exact same thing that we did here. I was at the lowest digit in my system, so when I back up 1, I go to the highest digit I have in my system, and then this place has to get reduced by 1 to give me the 114, base 5. Keep practicing these. Ask questions when you have them. You can do it. Just keep working at it.